ඇත්ත කෙටියෙන් දත්ත වැඩියෙන් සයිබර් අවකාශයේ කළඹන වුවත් සලකුණ News First YouTube channelය අදම subscribe කරන්න. News First ජනතාව සමග.
Hello there, a very good evening. This is Face the Nation. We're coming to you live despite many hardships that our guests as well as our journalists are facing in traveling, of course, because of the fuel crisis that has affected us all. But however, to address the fuel crisis, to address the economic crisis in Sri Lanka, we first need to identify who is at the top, who will be leading Sri Lanka. Sri Lankans showed the world the power of unity and the fact that always the sovereignty lies with the people. This is, of course, guaranteed to us by the Constitution of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, but there were only a very, very few instances in past where this was shown or articulated to the rest of Sri Lanka as well as the world. However, on the 9th of July, Sri Lankans poured into the street in opposition against the administration of the country and their handling of this economic crisis. Their demands were the people who brought us to this place must be held accountable, and the people who brought us to this place will not be allowed to continue in office because they are not the people with the solutions that the people want. They have lost the people's mandate. But now the question is, without an election, how are we going to elect the next president? Who is going to be the next president? How is the people's mandate going to be represented either in parliament or in the executive? To discuss these matters, we've got tonight on our show parliamentarian Chandima Virakodi from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. We've also got parliamentarian Harshana Rajakaruna from the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. Also joining us today via Zoom is Dr. Harini Amarasuriya from the Jatika Jana Balawegaya. A very good evening, gentlemen and lady, and welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us despite these trying times. Thank you very much, Dr. Harini, as well, for joining us via Zoom. I understand that you are facing issues with the fuel crisis, and I'm pretty sure all of our viewers would understand the situation that everybody is in right now, and we are grateful that you have taken your time to join us via Zoom as well. So getting right into the discussion, there are many questions on the minds of the people in Sri Lanka. Let me start off with Dr. Harini Amarasuriya itself. Dr. Harini, you are from the Jatika Jana Balawegaya, affiliated with the JVP, of course, the coalition. Dr. Harini, the JVP is usually the party that brings so much information to the people. We've seen many revelations in Parliament. I believe there was a press conference a few months back where the leader of the JVP made startling revelations regarding massive corruptions that have taken place in the country. There were statements made by different quarters that defamation cases will be filed against him. However, no defamation cases have been filed. So because the JVP is known for revealing information to the general public so often, I pose this question to you, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. Dr. Harini, we as Sri Lankans don't know where our head of state is. Dr. Harini, do you have any information as to where the leader of Sri Lanka is right now?
I have no idea where he is right now. We were told by the speaker that he has left the country. Then this was reversed. Soon after, I saw just a few moments ago that the speaker said he had made a mistake. He's still in the country. So to be honest, I have no idea where he is. There are rumors that he has actually left the country subsequently. But these are rumors. I think the fact of the matter is the man is missing in action. And I think maybe we should be focusing on what happens after than trying to find his whereabouts right now, though that also needs to be accounted for at some point, because I don't think we can let him get away quite this easily also.
Well, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, Sri Lankans voted at the previous presidential election and the general election with so much of hope, so much of vigor. Everything that the government, or when the president was appointed with a massive majority, 6.9 million votes. The president made certain requests subsequently after being appointed to office. He said he wants a two-thirds majority in parliament, and for the first time in the history of Sri Lanka after the introduction of the 1978 constitution, we had a parliament with a single party securing a two-thirds majority at an election. Every other time that a single party secured a two-thirds majority in parliament, it was by either buying over members of the opposition or members of the opposition crossing over to that party. That was the usual manner in which a two-thirds majority was formed in parliament, or by way of a coalition. However, this time the people had so much trust in this president, they had so much trust in the government that they saw it fit for the first time in the history of Sri Lanka to appoint a government with a two-thirds majority in this country. And look where that has brought us today, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. We are, for the first time in the history of Sri Lanka, a bankrupt nation. We don't even have money to purchase fuel. Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, as the Jatika Janabalawegya, you've always been very vociferous regarding corruption and matters of the state. Dr. Harini, where to next? There are many candidates vying for the position of interim president and also prime minister. But what is the JVP's take on all of this?
So what we are currently, we're talking with all the other political parties because we need to know also, as you know, despite the influence that we may wield ideologically and in terms of setting opinions and in the revelations that you spoke about in Parliament, we only have 3 seats. So we also need to consult with the others what they're thinking. Our position is very clear. We made that clear a long time ago on the 9th of May, that despite being a small party in Parliament, we are willing to take responsibility. We are willing to take on whatever responsibility is given to us, but that has to come through consensus. That has to come with the agreement of the other parties. And if we are given the opportunity, we will do what is we are willing to take on a leadership role if necessary. However, all that is up to the Parliament to decide. It's up to the parliamentarians to decide. What needs to happen now first, before we get to that, is to make sure that the President and the Prime Minister actually resign. And then thereafter, what happens according to the Constitution has to be, that process has to follow. Now, as you know, this evening it was announced by the Speaker that Parliament will be convened on the 15th. That's this Friday. We believe that will be to notify the fact that the president has resigned. The Prime Minister's position is yet unclear. We know that the public at large and at the party leaders meeting, everybody has insisted that he resign as well. So depending on the situation, there will be an acting president for a while, and then on the 20th of July, that is next Wednesday, I believe, that Parliament will be convened and we will be voting for a new president. That's how it is set out in the Constitution, and that's the process that will take place in the coming days and weeks. And our expectation, however, in fact, that's one of the points that we are very firm on, is that this has to, whatever new entity, new government that is put in place must have a very limited agenda, because we feel that actually this Parliament also no longer has a mandate. Certainly the composition of the Parliament is completely out of sync with what is happening outside and what people are demanding outside. So whatever new arrangement that comes into place, there must be a fixed date for a dissolution of Parliament and for a declaration of calling of a fresh election, so that people will be given their opportunity, as you mentioned right at the beginning, to exercise their sovereignty and to elect a new set of people to the Parliament, as well as to the Parliament, basically, so that the reforms that the people are demanding, the reforms that have developed outside the Parliament for so long now, in the last 3-4 months, can actually be implemented and taken to some kind of logical conclusion. So in our view, the battle, the Aragalia, is far from over. There's still work to be done. I mean, they've achieved much. The people of this country, as you pointed out, have made history to be able to influence or force a regime to leave a regime that was seen to be sort of so invincible, left without a bullet being fired by the protesters, by not even a stone being thrown by those who were protesting, right? It was by and large a very peaceful, democratic movement. Of course, there were incidents that took place, but apart from that, I mean, especially on Saturday, that was a very, very peaceful protest, and that's historical. So the victories, there are many victories that we can reflect on, but certainly there's more work to be done if we want to really capitalize on this moment and capture the potential of this moment.
Dr. Heidi Amarasuriya, I was in discussion with Dr. Rajat Senaratne a short while ago on our program Newsline, and he outlined to the viewers what the Samagi Jana Balavegya was doing, what the opposition parties were doing. As far as the Jatika Jana Balavegya is concerned, there needs to be certain amount of consensus created in Parliament. Regarding the discussions that you've been having as the Jatika Jana Balavegya, what can you tell us?
So we are very clear. We are, as I explained, we want to make sure that the president actually does resign, as he has said. There needs to be a letter of resignation. We need to see this letter of resignation, and then the process that is laid out in the Constitution has to kick in. We also think we anyway do not think that the Prime Minister has any legitimacy either. So he should leave as well, and we do not think that he has any mandate any longer to take any leadership position in the country. So thereafter, and as I said, there are certain immediate, an interim arrangement will have to come into place because you can't immediately go for an election. And based on the shape of that interim administration, and as long as that, as there is agreement that that interim arrangement is for a specific period of time, and that the main objective of the interim administration is to see us through a period of transition till we can elect a new government, the NPP, the Jatika Jana Balawegaya, is willing to support that interim administration, take on any responsibility if necessary within that administration. But it has to, there have to be certain sort of agreements before we can finally decide what our role is going to be, based on discussions that will happen with the members of the other parties as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. We've of course opened our phone lines for questions to be sent in by our guests, by our viewers, of course. We request our viewers to send in a text message with your questions. And I have already received many questions for Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, and those questions will be posed in the coming rounds. But we move our attention towards Parliamentarian Harshana Rajakaruna from the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. Mr. Rajakaruna, the Samagi Jana Balawegaya is the main opposition in Parliament, or the largest opposition party in Parliament, and as such there is much responsibility on the Samagi Jana Balawegaya when it comes to steering Sri Lanka during these troubled times, because it is clear beyond a doubt that the governing majority in the country, with a two-thirds majority in Parliament, has completely lost their mandate. The people came to Colombo and the people made that known to the entire world. However, unfortunately, the government lost their mandate quite a long time ago, quite a few months ago. However, after subsequent incidents that happened in Sri Lanka, this finally culminated in the July 9th Aragalaya protest, the final protest, that after which the president decided to resign and hand over power to an interim government. Mr. Rajakaruna, as far as the discussions of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya goes, who is your candidate for president? Who is your candidate for prime minister? What are the developments?
First of all, thank you very much for having me in this program, and also like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who came out on Saturday. I mean, we all did it. We all got together and conveyed the message, and we hope that the president will keep his word, though he has not given it in writing. He has stressed it a couple of times. Like you said, I don't know where he is. However, we are very, very happy that finally, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has mentioned that he is going to resign. I wish that he made this decision 2 months ago. And I think Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe made a big mistake by taking over premier position without a mandate, and the solution dragged, rather the situation dragged for another 2 months without having a solution. So SJB, we always wanted to have a government that consists of all parties. We always took the position that Gotabaya Rajapaksa should resign, and a lot of people were blaming us that we didn't take that responsibility 2 months ago, but the reason behind it was nothing other than his resignation, or the time that a clear path of his exit. Now we have seen it. We hope once again that he will keep his word. Dr. Harini Amarasuriya was mentioning what we need to do. All that is in assumption that he will resign on the 13th. So we, the SJB, the parliamentary group, met today, and we nominated our leader, the opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, as our nominee for the vote that will happen on the 20th in Parliament. And we are hoping that all parties will get together and we will take the leadership to revive and back and get this country back on track. So that is the decision that we have made. We are very clear. We have nominated our leader, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, and we have been working towards this all-party government. Even the last 2 months, we have had all-party discussions many times, and it was convened by Honorable Lakshman Kiriyalla, our opposition chief whip, and we have had 2 committees, the economic committee headed by Dr. Harsha De Silva, the political committee headed by Dr. Raj Senaratne, and so Dr. Harsha De Silva has already put out an outline of the economic, how we should go about in the future, and even the political committee, they have come up with a mechanism on what we are going to do in the immediate future. So we are all ready, and we hope everybody gets together in this crisis situation.
Mr. Rajakaruna, when you say you hope that everybody gets together in this crisis situation, one question, is the opposition together with the SJB in this matter, like right now?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we do have doubts because we have had some unpleasant experience, especially when it came to the deputy speaker's election. So, because, you know, the SJB has just over 50 parliamentarians, and there's 225 parliamentarians altogether. So, majority is from Pohottuwa, and that's a fact. But there's quite a lot of parliamentarians who have come to the opposition, who's being independent from Pohottuwa, and they are sitting with us. So we believe that they will all get together. That's what we have been trying to do, and we believe that we can get the whole opposition and maybe even part of the governing parliamentarians as well.
But Mr. Rajakaruna, since you brought up the matter about the appointment of the Deputy Speaker, Ajit Rajapaksa, at the time, what these members of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, who supposedly became independent, said was that matters weren't communicated to them properly. So because of that, by default, they deemed it fit to vote for the candidate put forward by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Is this true? Like,
I mean, I don't want to comment on something that happened. There has, I mean, we thought that it was very clear. We had announced it long before. However, they say that there was a miscommunication. Anyway, we want to be very clear in this time that there's no miscommunication, and we have had, that is the reason that we have been having all-party committee, which I think was formed about a month ago, and all the representatives have come, and we have had many discussions. That all-party group has sub-committees, like I said, the political committee and the economic committee. And I hope the JVP led parliamentarians, yes, will also get involved. However, I have been told that they have not participated in those committee meetings. However, I hope that they will in the future, and they will get together, and we believe that they can also contribute a lot to get to revive this unfortunate situation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harshan Rajkarna. Moving on to parliamentarian Shandima Veerakodi, former minister. Mr. Veerakodi, thank you very much first for joining us on our show live today, despite the fuel issues that the entire country is facing. Mr. Veerakodi, you are a member of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. You were elected to Parliament from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. There is, however, now a situation where the Parliament is not really representing the mandate of the people. And we've come to another decisive election, but this is not an election for the people. This is an election for Parliament, where Parliament will be given an opportunity to elect an interim president. As far as your discussions within the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna goes, we know one thing that we know is that the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna is going to be a decisive factor in the election of the next interim president. What is your plan? Who are your candidates?
Well, first of all, I must say this is an opportunity that the country has got, not due to the efforts of any one of us in Parliament. We must be thankful to those who are involved in Aragalaya for giving this opportunity. So this can be considered a historic opportunity through which we can change the irony of our nation. So at this point of time, what we must do is not to split and contest. We must understand outside world is watching us. Those who worked hard, those who were up the whole day for the struggle are expecting the Parliament to deliver. So as each one of us as parliamentarians, whether we belong to whatever party, no matter what, should be able to contribute towards the nation. This is a time at which country expects, mainly probably due to the conduct of the parliamentarians, governments, officials, and to some extent the general public as well. So we are all, I mean, this is not a time at which we should be trying to put the blame on this one or that one. We must now set an example. So we should, I think, be able to agree on a person who can resolve this issue. The ultimate expectation of the people is to go for an election, and at that to get a clearer mandate of people who belong to the caliber that the people outside are now wanting inside in Parliament. So till such time, it's a temporary arrangement. Till such time, we have a Herculean task. Since we were in various camps as politicians, since we had political aspirations as parties, over a period of time, certain decisions were taken which would not have been the right decisions as far as the country and the future is concerned. So this is a time at which we should all agree to reverse such decisions that had been detrimental to the country and bring about what is best for the country. And we must be able to be truthful to the people as to where we stand. Now, not like last government, when the Prime Minister was brought in. The story was, what was in the air was that, well, the Prime Minister is coming as if the Santa Claus used to come. He doesn't come anymore to Sri Lanka. He used to come, okay, the queues will be over, hunger will not be an issue. That was, people were expecting quite a lot when he walked in. But he didn't have a program, neither did he or his team put the truth forward before the people. Now that is why my colleague was telling me, we as parliamentarians got together, leaving our parties aside on the invitation of the leader of the opposition. We sat together and formulated a policy, economic policy for the interim government, which has specifically specified what are going to be immediate measures, short term, medium term and long term. Likewise, the political setup as to how we are going to function as a national government, all party government with common consensus. We have to have the room, the infrastructure, the framework with the agreement of all unanimously. The members representing almost all the political parties were present. I don't think there is any reason for the JVP, the members who are not present, to disagree. Of course, if they are in a position to add or propose whatever views and opinions to the proposals that we have prepared, we are willing to accept those as well, because this is not for the benefit of me or for my party or his party or another party. This we are prepared for the country. So as of now, what I believe is, we should have now, I heard now there was the last presidential election, there was a contest. So at the elections, Gotabaya Rajapaksa was elected the president, and then Sajith Premadasa came second. So as of now, I think among the parliamentarians, there are candidate who has announced candidature has I mean, is the only person who has got 56 lakhs, 5.6 million votes island-wide. So there is a legitimate claim for them, as when you consider from among the members. I mean, today the public opinion could differ.
So, Mr. Virakuri, you only attended discussions with the opposition since you are now an independent member. Are you an independent member?
Yeah, I have declared my independence long
time ago. Okay, so you only had discussions with the opposition. You didn't have discussions with the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, under whose ticket you contested for the election under. Did you have discussions?
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna is now splitted into various camps. So I don't know where
who to discuss with.
To whom to discuss with. They discuss at various brothers, like they belong to various family members and so on. So I don't know where the party is. But irrespective of that, I mean, this is not a time to be criticizing or letting down anyone. We must invite all of them, like irrespective of those who are trying to, those who have attempted. And
so when you say invite all of them, do you mean, you know, the Rajapaksas as well, Basil Rajapaksa and all these other members of parliament?
Not those who people don't expect to be in a group. And anyway, Basil Rajapaksa is out of the parliament, so he doesn't.
But he still is the organizer of your party.
No, he can be anything outside the parliament. But at the moment, what is relevant is the 225 members, technically and legally. Then in that case, before his views are considered, the members of Aragala leaders must be given priority. But unfortunately, this according to the constitution, the decision is confined to
Parliament alone.
Parliament alone.
Mr. Virakuri, you spoke about parliamentarians or leaders of this country being truthful. You also spoke about the need to reverse certain adverse decisions that were made on the part of the country. Today, there was, of course, a statement made by the prospective acting president of the country, or person who is slated to be the acting president of the country, the Speaker of Parliament, where there was a U-turn, as you mentioned, but also a question as to the truthfulness of his statement, because when the Speaker was questioned by the BBC regarding the whereabouts of the leader of our country, which is currently unknown, I even posed the question to Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, and she too was unaware of this, of his location. But the Speaker of Parliament, who is now slated to be the acting president of Sri Lanka, told the BBC quite frankly that the president is no longer in the country, that he has left, and that he will come back to Sri Lanka on Wednesday. And then shortly afterwards puts out a statement saying, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." So Mr. Virakodi, the Parliament has been asking the people to unite to face this economic crisis almost since the beginning of this year. 6-7 months down the line, the people are united, however, parliamentarians are divided. From the beginning of the year, people were asked to, work towards the betterment of the country. People tried as much, but now there is a question as to the truthfulness of the prospective acting president. Your take on this?
Well, it could be that the fact is that the president is in a boat or a ship, so which is sailing.
Do you know Mr. Virakodi, where the leader of our
No, I don't know.
country is?
I have not seen him for many months or so. I have not met him, I think, in about 5-6 months. I believe what I heard was that he got into a boat.
A ship, you mean?
A ship or boat or whatever that's floating. So when you're like, you can't be in one place. Probably by the time the Speaker first found out, he would have been out of territorial waters. Since it's floating, could be that it has come towards waters, because he has not landed anywhere.
Mr. Virakodi, where did he find the fuel from, Mr. Virakodi?
So that is another question that a lot of people are asking. People don't have fuel, but the president has enough to float for days.
To power a ship?
Yeah. So it's, I mean, anyway, since these are his last dates, and since he has now indicated that he's formally, finally leaving, for which we have been asking for openly. In my case, I came on media and requested him many times. Finally, but he didn't listen to us. He didn't even care of what we proposed, suggested. But finally, he listened to Aragala Karuwan. So finally, now anyway that he's on the verge of leaving, let him have a honourable exit.
Honourable exit?
We will call it, because since he's leaving.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chandima Virakodi, for those views. That was the opening round here at Face the Nation. Up next, of course, we opened our lines for questions from our viewers, and we've had a flurry of messages coming in. We will pose as many of these questions as we can. We will also open the floor to our journalist present here today to pose questions to the panelist. But before that, we will cross over to a short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We'll bring you more interesting details from the situation that Sri Lanka is in right now after this short commercial break. You're watching Face the Nation live. Stay tuned.
COVID-19 සඳහා ආරක්ෂිත පියවර. නිතරම හොඳින් සබන් යොදා දෑත් සෝදන්න. සබන් හෝ විසබීජ නාශක මධ්‍යසාරයක් භාවිතා කර දෑත් පිරිසිදු කරන්න. සැම විටම අන් අය සමග මීටරයක දුරස්ථභාවයක් පවත්වා ගන්න. හැකි සෑම විටම නිවසේ රැඳී සිටින්න. නිරතුරුවම නිවැරදිව මුඛාවරණ පළඳින්න.
There is no gas, there is no electricity, and there is no Willpower.
Cabinet ministers and Prime Minister is not the solution.
But at the end of the day, even those who speak of good governance do not want to be held accountable.
A massive food crisis, and it'll end in food riots.
Fighting for the right of the future generation and for the future kids.
Corrupted officials favor only these 2-3 people.
We will fight till my last drop of blood.
Sooner or later they will have to step down.
We will not only suffer for another 3 years of this government.
The betterment of the people of our country.
Newsline, weekdays at 8:30 p.m. on TV1.
A brand new year, a year of hope, a year of aspirations and people looking for inspiration.
Our software engineers, our IT expertise are, not seconding to anyone.
A proper investigation led by the CID. This will be swept under the carpet.
Understanding about the stock market, the fundamentals, the economy, that is very important.
Entire ownership of this reclaimed land as well as the governance of Port City are all under the government of Sri Lanka.
No planet, no people, no business.
Yes.
And this is the simple thing about Biznomics.
Your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. Biznomics, Saturday and Sunday at 5 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Face the Nation. We are, of course, discussing what the future of Sri Lanka will be like because people are still unaware of what is going to happen during the next few days. This is by far the most uncertain people in Sri Lanka have been for a very long time, and the timing couldn't have been worse because this has come to our country at a time when we as a country, for the first time in our history, have defaulted on our loan. We have with us 3 parliamentarians, if you're joining us just now. This is the round where we open the floor for questions, of course, from our journalist, as well as from our viewers. We opened our hotline a while ago. You can send in your questions and we will make sure that we will pose as many of these questions as we can to our panelists so that we can keep you, the people, informed of these matters that you want answered. So without further ado, I open the floor for questions from our journalist, Shehan Ranatunga. Shehan?
Thank you, Shalan. My first question is to Mr. Virakodi. Mr. Virakodi, very simply, taking into consideration all that's happening in the country and you look at the protests and the public discontent, do you honestly believe that with the current parliamentary setup, with the current SLPP majority parliament, that Sri Lankans or the public can expect a solution that will satisfy the general public, a political solution that will satisfy the public at this time?
Well, that is why I said this is a historic moment that we have got. So we have to all get united. We have to leave aside our political aspirations and do what is best for the country. Now the best example is 19th Amendment, the 21st Amendment or the 22nd Amendment as it is now before Parliament. The draft, when prepared, was something that was almost or was better than what was there in the 19th. But unfortunately, when it went to the President and the Cabinet, what came back to Parliament is something that further strengthened the President's authority. So we have to be genuine. If we say that we are ready to deliver what is expected by the people, we must do that. If all the parliamentarians, the majority is still with not with the SLPP, I must say, the majority of members got elected on that list. So if a fair majority of them can also join to do the right thing, we will be able to deliver. Otherwise, people will further reject. People have already rejected
You've been parliamentarians and leaders in Sri Lanka have been calling for unity from the start of this year. Like I said before, people have united, but parliamentarians are still divided. Leaders again ask Sri Lankans to tighten their belts, strap in for a bumpy ride. People have no choice on that matter, but they have to, as much as they can, they have. But on the flip side, we still see, maybe not all parliamentarians, I'm not openly making this claim against all parliamentarians, but there are many who still misuse their privileges and are still seen driving around in massive SUVs that consume so much of fuel at a time when Sri Lankans don't have fuel to take their children to school, to take a person who is dying, who is on their deathbed to the hospital so that we can save their lives. So when people see these kind of things, the natural response of the people would be to think that, they don't care about us. They don't care about us. We've given them so much responsibility. We've given them so much honor. We've given them so much of privileges, and they simply don't care about us. And that results in anger. And I think that anger was shown very well on the 9th of July. So, I mean, this is not a discussion that parliamentarians can have with the people. This is a discussion that you as parliamentarians need to have with your colleagues. What's the progress on that?
Well, as of now, as I understand, a lot of members of parliament have realized it. But
now they've realized it.
Now with these messages, with these strong messages, but there are still some who have not realized, who haven't got the message. I had to admit.
There are still parliamentarians who have not got the message.
Yeah, and I can tell you personally about me. I have held various positions in parliament. I had never used more than one vehicle when going about, that everyone knows. So we have been complying with what people expected even the time we were holding position. But at the same time, it is not only the parliamentarians. Everyone is now talking about the wastage or whatever misuse by the parliamentarians. But look at the officials, look at the military. As of now, the amount of vehicles and the amount of wastage unnecessarily, that is still being done.
But Mr. Virakodi, parliamentarians, government is appointed by the people and given power over all of these matters. It is the parliament that makes allocations for the expenditure heads of the ministries or the institutions, whatever. It's the president, the executive, who makes the appointments to the heads of these institutions like the CEB, the RDA, the UDA. All of these appointments are made. So these are powers of the sovereignty that the people transfer to parliamentarians. So isn't that too a discussion that you need to have with your colleagues?
Well, now that's where we went wrong as a country. People gave unlimited power to the minister and the parliamentarian. And then the military and the officials used to only take the command. And then for the minister or the parliamentarian to keep the official and the military happy, they were allowed to misuse. No one talked about those till these youngsters started their struggle outside. So now it's a time. Now there are not. We have to be
Mr. Virakodi, were there times
we have to be frank and open about the trade unions also. Now there are certain trade unions. I mean, you must be able to fight for the rights of the workers. You must give them due recognition. But at the same time, if they function as mafia, country can't move forward. Country can't take the best possible decision that is required for the benefit of the country and the people. So we have to now. This is a time now. Not only you must. I mean, as media, I'm inviting you. I'm requesting you. Pinpoint and raise the finger at them also. Because we are now. Everyone should be able to correct themselves at this point of time. This is the best opportunity that the country has got. Now everyone is responsible in some way for this issue. The governments, successive governments should get the blame, and this president should, I think, should take at least 50% of the jeopardy to the country. That's a fact. But at the same time, there are it is now the time for everyone to start thinking new. Everyone should not think about them or their rights or their personal things, but about the country. Otherwise, this again is going to become a failure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandima Virakodi. We will get back to you, of course, during the course of this discussion. I now will take this opportunity to pose some questions that were sent in to us by our viewers. This question goes out to Dr. Harini. Dr. Harini, can you hear us since you're joining us virtually?
Yes, I can hear you.
Dr. Harini, so the question sent in by one of our viewers is, it reads like this. When you say responsibility, you said that the Jatika Janabala Vege is ready to take up responsibilities. The question is, when you say responsibility, what do you exactly mean? Are you speaking of a responsibility to be a Prime Minister or President, or a responsibility to take up ministerial positions? What do you really mean there?
Yes, I think we made it quite clear that, yes, if necessary, we are willing to take on the leadership positions, either as president or as prime minister, or participate in the interim government, the caretaker government also. But like I said, it needs this. We are only 3 in parliament, right? So that has to be, when outside there's a lot of pressure on us to take on this responsibility. But within the parliament, we are a small representation. So then our ability to negotiate for those positions within the parliament is fairly limited. Right?
So, Dr. Harini, would the Jatika Janabala Vege be willing to take up ministerial positions under an interim government set up under the leadership of, well, 2 other parliamentarians, let's say from 2 other parties in parliament?
No, we are open to that.
You're open to
that? We are open to that, subject to certain conditions.
What are these conditions?
The conditions is that there is a fixed time period for the interim government. I think we think it's very dangerous to go into this with a kind of an open-ended plan, right? Because I think why we are saying that and why we are stressing this is that it's really important to understand that how out of sync this current parliament is with what's going on and what is necessary. I mean, why have people got so irritated and annoyed and angry with the 225 parliamentarians? It's because we haven't been able to deliver, right? And one of the primary reasons for that is that the way in which the parliament has functioned over the past two years or so is that it has been unable to deliver on and respond adequately to the aspirations and the requirements of the people. I mean, the past few weeks have been sort of classic examples where we've wasted so much time talking about everything else other than sort of how to address this crisis collectively, right? So in that sense, this parliament has lost its legitimacy in the eyes of the people. So to continue under this with this composition is extremely difficult, as my colleague Chaminda Virakodi also just pointed out, parliamentarian Chaminda Virakodi. Look at what happened with the 22nd Amendment, right? What has been ultimately presented is a far cry from what is actually required. And that is because of the heavy influence that one party has on what goes on in the parliament. So we think that the kinds of reforms and the kinds of actions that are necessary for us to take to address the issues of the country, whether in the short term or in the long term, are extremely difficult under this current composition. So we see the interim arrangement as something very transitionary, as something that is temporary with a very fixed and limited mandate. And if in that context, we are willing to take on any responsibility that we are requested to do. So.
But Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, the next question to you comes with a little bit of an allegation against the Jatika Jana Balawegaya as well. The question reads as, Dr. Amarasuriya, your group encouraged the people to storm Colombo and the president's abode. Why have you not said a single statement to stop the mob from treating our buildings, such as the president's house and temple trees, with such immunity? And also, why haven't you called for calm? How do you respond?
I think we have. We have done that. We've held 2 press conferences since then where we've appealed for calm, and to treat and to be honest, I was there on Saturday and I saw how people were sort of really careful also about how to deal with them. I heard people saying, "This is our money. These things have been built with our money. This is our property. These vehicles are from our property. We mustn't damage any of it." Right? So I mean, I think there is a lot of understanding also amongst most of the people that I saw, at least, and that I continue to see in the past few days, where they are being respectful and they are quite aware that that those buildings need to be protected and that they need to be looked after properly. There are exceptions, and I think that there needs to be a way in which that has to be controlled and managed. But I think it is incorrect to say that people are just sort of are looting or are damaging the buildings willfully. There are exceptions, and I'm aware of that. But by and large, that's not how people are behaving. And I think it's, in fact, I mean, I see it as a way in which, for the first time, ordinary citizens of this country are able to go into those places that have been, have been maintained with our tax money. And I think there's a huge level of curiosity and interest in what goes on and how those buildings have functioned. And I think that's perfectly natural. But I think with regard to our own position, we have made it very clear that those buildings belong to the public. They are historical sites and have to be treated carefully. And we have a responsibility to look after those buildings and preserve it for future generations also. I think we've made that very clear.
Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, I completely agree with you when you said that people are very curious as to how our leaders have been living over the past few decades at least. Because I know I myself was very, very curious about how the presidential residence would look like, because I have never been there. And as such, I had the opportunity, of course, not as a journalist, but as a member of the public, to really visit this place and take a look at what has been happening. And I must say that I was startled as to the luxuries that were available at the presidential residence. I'm pretty sure the other residences would also have similar luxuries. And it was really sad to see people, ordinary people, who have never set foot in a gymnasium, in a gym, coming to this place and being at awe by what they saw. These people were using the treadmills and other equipment that were available at the gym. Some of them didn't even know how to use them because of the simple reason that they have never seen some of these equipment before in their life. So it was a weird experience for me, at least. But of course, like you said, these buildings need to be preserved because they have historic importance, and they also are important to our country because these are the places that houses our leaders. One final question for you, Dr. Harini. This also sent in by one of our viewers. The viewer says, we don't see the JVP in discussion with other parties in Parliament, including the SJB, as they are the majority in the opposition. We've seen discussions with the TNA and the rest of the oppositions. Why isn't the JVP holding discussions with the rest of the opposition?
Oh, we've been having discussions, intense discussions over the past couple of days. Our leader, Anurakumara Dissanayake, has been in discussions with all the parties in the past few days. So that's not quite correct. we are in close contact with all the different parties. I mean, these discussions happen. Not all of these discussions happen in front of the media, and that's how things are, right? Some meetings are and some meetings aren't. But we are in discussion because I think there is agreement on certain sort of core areas that amongst all the different parties, on the resignations, on an interim government, and on the need for an election. But there are details that have to be worked out, and we are very much a part of those discussions. So we have been meeting with all the parties in recent days. I just want to add one little thing to what you said about those residents. One of the things I think we need to do is also to reevaluate whether our leaders need to live in that kind of luxury also. I mean, I think, when we really need to ask ourselves whether our leaders can afford that kind of lifestyle, or whether the citizens of this country can afford to maintain our leaders in that kind of lifestyle. I don't think we can. And I think in some ways, the opening up of these buildings and putting these things out for people to view also makes it quite clear that there are decisions that we have to make in the future about the kinds of privileges. I mean, you spoke about this earlier also, the kinds of privileges that our leaders have been taking for granted when the majority of people in this country are being asked to tighten their belts and are deprived of basics. Our leaders really should not be living in that kind of way. I think it's quite unethical to do that. And in many ways, I think this opening up of these spaces will really force us to confront these things and make some drastic changes about the kinds of privileges our leaders have taken for granted for so many years.
Dr. Harini, I just would like to ask one question from you just before we go to Mr. Rajakaruna. Doctor, the timing. For a very long time, experts, opposition parliamentarians such as yourself have been calling for the government to start talks with the IMF, calling for the government to restructure their debt. And the process has finally begun, and we were at a crucial point in our IMF discussions seeking a bailout. And then now we have this situation. Do you think that this is the right time for this to happen?
Absolutely, yes. Because if you noticed, Shehan, is that you? I can't see any of you,
yes.
So I'm not quite sure who I'm talking to.
Yes, Doctor, this is Shehan.
If you notice the response from the international community in the last few days, I mean, they've also been calling for political stability in order for these discussions to move forward. No international organization is willing to work with or commit to a government that is so deeply unpopular, that has been rejected by the public. So I think for us to move ahead with these conversations, to come to some kind of concrete agreements, there really needs to be a stable government in place. More than a stable government, a government that is trustworthy, a government that the people of this country can trust, and a government that the international community can trust and work with. So if this had happened a few weeks before, as many of us have been asking for, as people in this country have been demanding, perhaps we could have been several steps ahead in our discussions on debt restructuring and providing the relief that the people of this country needs. So at least it happened now, and I think it was absolutely essential for this to have happened in order for us to move forward to address those real issues. It's unfortunate that it took so long, and it's unfortunate that people had to expend so much energy, so much time, and subject themselves. I mean, this was not easy, right? This was not easy. People were getting beaten up. People were, subject to tear gas attacks. They did all that. They had to go through all of that. in order to sort of achieve this, which the only reason was because the president and this government just were so stubborn and refused to really understand what was happening outside, and even understand the pressure that they were getting from opposition parties, which have been asking for their resignation for weeks as well.
Dr. Harini, you mentioned about certain adversities that the people had to go through. I think it's only fair and just that we also mention about the people who died while protesting. We had the incident in Rambukana, then we had many other incidents. I believe a former member of the armed forces was shot in the head. There was a stray bullet or something of that incident on the 9th of July. So many
have been injured. So many have died in queues, right? I think around 15 have died in queues. I mean, so many people who gave up their livelihoods, their time, their energy. You know, people walked for kilometers to get to Colombo on that day, right?
Definitely, Doctor.
So, I mean, the sacrifices and the commitment that people have been made to get to this point is incredible and have to be appreciated.
If I can direct my question to Mr. Harshan Rajakaruna next. This is also a question coming in from one of our viewers, a viewer from Mount Lavinia. He highlights, of course, in his question, the requirement or the need for a smooth transition of power, and I believe everybody in Sri Lanka would agree on that. He goes on to say that Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe does not have a mandate of the people, and the longer he holds on to power, the worse the crisis in Sri Lanka is going to get. He also highlights the fact that this will most likely frustrate even peace-loving citizens who maybe, even at this point of time, are still peaceful and have not taken to the streets maybe even. But he asks our viewers, I mean our panelists, as to if there is any way to convince the current Prime Minister to step down from his position and make sure that there is a smooth transition of power. There is a little bit of ambiguity as to when the Prime Minister is willing to step down. Yesterday, the chairman of the United National Party said that the Constitution doesn't allow, I think Mr. Vajira said that the Constitution doesn't allow the Prime Minister to step down. So there is a little bit of ambiguity. Mr. Rajakaruna, you were a member of the United National Party. You called him your leader once. What can be done?
I totally agree with him. I mean, I think the majority of Sri Lanka agrees with him. That's what we wanted. That's what people wanted. People wanted Gota Ranil government to step down. That's what the Saturday's protests were all about. And I don't know why he's still hanging on to it. He should immediately step down. That's what the all-party, the party leaders meeting, which happened on the 9th. You know, it was very clearly conveyed to him that the President and the Prime Minister both should resign, and then the Speaker will be the acting President. And as not only as SJB, but most of the political parties did mention that.
But Mr. Rajakaruna, how do you propose? Is there anything that you can do to maybe convince your leader?
It's two ways. It's two ways. He has to realize that, and he has to step down, or else the president has to kick him out.
Mr. Chandama Virakudi, what's stopping the president from removing the Prime Minister and solving this issue?
I don't understand as to why the president wanted time, first of all, when, like at the party leaders on the 9th, the request from almost all the party leaders except probably Prime Minister was for both of them to leave immediately. Most members who participated gave a time frame of about a maximum 2 hours, within 2 hours. Because at that point of time also, we were hearing from various places of people who are coming to, who are planning to come to Colombo. So in order to avoid further calamity in the country, or rather there was no calamity that was created, I might say, like create any issue in the country, in the name of the country, people, the leaders wanted both of them out. But and then according to the speaker, president had wanted the speaker to find out the opinion of the party leaders for him to comply with. So accordingly, the party leaders gave their decision. But with all that, he has moved for 3-4 days. And then, as a responsible citizen, he has to understand people are expecting both of them out. And only way that the Prime Minister can be removed is by him or by a no confidence motion in Parliament. So there is no time to go through that process. If we try, we can certainly do that. But that will aggravate the situation outside Parliament. So the President, I think, if he has access to this program in the sea, I think he should at least now listen to us and tell his secretary to issue a letter. He can contact the secretary to the President.
If he is overseas.
If he is overseas or if he is in the sea, he can instruct the secretary to issue a letter removing the Prime Minister.
And also, just to add to that, I mean, there's absolutely nothing in the Constitution to stop Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe resigning. I mean, it's your wish.
Luckily.
I mean, it's a matter of, I mean, we've seen it 2 months ago, where Mahinda Rajapaksa, the former Prime Minister, resigned.
I would like to ask for a copy of that Constitution from UNP's chairman.
Yeah. Mr. Rajakaruna, the weight of expectation of the public, people are suffering, they're struggling. They want simple things, Mr. Rajakaruna. They want fuel, they want uninterrupted supply of electricity, they want milk powder, very basic things is all they're asking, and you just step out the street, you see the queues. Does the SJB realize the weight of expectation from the next leadership? And how well prepared is your party to respond to this? Are you able to supply the fuel? Are you able to supply these basic needs?
We have, as the SJB, we realized this long time ago. We have been telling this government to go to the IMF 2 years ago. We have been criticizing when they had tax cuts. We said that was the wrong move. So when the dollar was pegged to 203, we have been pushing them to change that decision. So unfortunately, the current government, the current president, and all the former ministers, including Mahinda Rajapaksa, Basil Rajapaksa, and the whole cabinet, they were not willing to listen. And we the SJB, have been very certain. We have been telling this government, but there was no use because they were not willing to listen at all. So, being in the opposition, we have done our duty. We have been voiceless, we have been demonstrating, we have been protesting. I mean, unfortunately, they have been totally deaf. Now, it is our time. We are ready to take the responsibility. Like you said, though those requirements are very
simple.
What do you say? Very basic things. We do require dollars. So it is not going to be easy just because we take over. Within a week, things are not going to be rectified. So we will make some tough decisions. We will have to make some tough reforms, economic reforms. We are confident that we can come over this.
But how confident are you of being able to execute those reforms under this current parliament?
So that is a challenge.
And is the SJB or the opposition leader confident that he can command a majority in parliament?
So that is a challenge. We are genuinely for it. It is a risk. Politically also it's a risk. We are not thinking about our political parties, our political ambitions. We have taken this position. We have nominated the opposition leader, Sajid Premadasa, as a candidate to be the president, to take up this challenge. And we hope that everybody forgets about political parties, political aspirations, how they are trying to, behind the scene, control these people. I hope and pray, especially the present Pohottuwa governing parliamentarians don't destroy this, because as you know, SJB has only 50 odd parliamentarians and out of 225. So we can't do it on our own. We need their support, and they have to do this for the sake of the country. I mean, if you can't do that now, there's no other time. So we really hope, we really hope and pray that they are all willing to do this with us. And it's a risk. Like you said, it's a risk, but we are taking that challenge.
Mr. Harshan Rajakaruna, just along those lines, I think your statement answered a question that was put forward to us by one of our viewers, asking how can the people trust the current parliament, because a majority of the parliamentarians in parliament are from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, which is the party that supports President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The question goes on to ask as to if it is possible to hold an election to dissolve parliament and hold an election. Another one of our viewers says election of a president, I believe the interim president he is referring to, is temporary. The Pohottuwa has a majority in parliament, therefore don't you think that a Pohottuwa candidate will be elected as the next interim president?
That possibility is there. But will that bring confidence? Will that bring trust? No, I don't think so. So I really hope that we can come to some sort of consensus, agreement, that the alternative, like Mr. Chandiva Virakodi said, Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the previous presidential election got 6.9 million votes. Next was opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, 5.6 million votes. So he's the only person who has that mandate. We need to bring confidence. We need to bring that trust, and he's the only person who can bring that. Because I think it has to be a candidate from the opposition. I don't think a Pohottuwa candidate will bring that trust, not only within Sri Lanka, even the international community, because everybody knows that there's no mandate, and people are really disgusted with the Pohottuwa government. So you need to show that change, and you need to have an all-party working plan, and we are hoping to get everybody together. And yes, we need an election soon. There's no doubt in that. But we have to have probably 12 months, maybe not more than that, till we get this country in order. Because we need, though we think the best solution is an election, but an immediate election is not possible due to obvious reasons.
The next question goes to Mr. Chandima Veerakodi. I believe this is with regard to a statement that you made before. The question has been posed on Twitter, of course. It's a statement, really. It says, you said before that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa needs to be given an honorable exit. However, this netizen on Twitter says he should be held accountable for what he did.
Certainly he should be held. Now what I meant was, now at this moment we are Sri Lankans. Our culture is such, when someone is in difficulty, we don't usually try to harass. Of course, he's accountable. If he's accountable,
I don't think the people see it in that way, because the people are now in difficulty and they're being harassed on a number of grounds.
What I'm telling you is, we must, like, whatever legal action that has to be taken, if he is to be, such will have to be taken. You shouldn't let people go scot-free under any circumstances, because we don't have the right to do that. It is what the people expect.
But Mr. Chandima Veerakodi, let's get real here, because I think we're past the point of being politically correct. When President Gotabaya Rajapaksa wasn't President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, when he was only former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, coming to Sri Lanka, asking for a mandate from the people, telling the people, I will give you a good country, this is my vistas of prosperity and splendor. There were those who said, if a dual citizen is elected as president, he could go back to the country of his origin at any time. There won't be any accountable measures. Since you were a part of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna at the time, you scoffed off all of those remarks. But that is exactly what is happening today. The president is not resigning and staying at maybe his house or somewhere in Sri Lanka, where Sri Lankan courts and the Sri Lankan legal system has jurisdiction. He is leaving to another country entirely, or at least that is the story right now, because there is no clarification from the president's media division as well. The president's media division has been rendered completely, almost debunked, because the president himself has come and said that, please listen to the speaker, I will communicate to the general public through the speaker. So Sri Lankans, the experiences of Sri Lankans is, especially when it comes to politicians and at least presidents in the country, is that none of them are held accountable. And on top of all of that, we have this president who has vowed that he will resign tomorrow, leaving the country entirely. Do you really think that he will be held accountable if there are any matters that will come up in court?
Well, why did we come to this situation? Like you said, this is a country where no politician has been held responsible.
Except for Ranjan Ramanayake.
Yeah. No. And also those who have been found guilty by courts have been accommodated in the cabinet. There are politicians who have been convicted by the High Court of Sri Lanka, had held cabinet portfolios in this country. So that is what resulted people to lose faith. Such things cannot be continued. So therefore, had there been, I don't know, I can't tell you offhand, but people, if anyone says, look here, this person has committed this offense of fraud or whatever which is contrary to the laws of the country, he should be dealt with. If we don't do that, and if people see again a deal, you call people openly call these deals, then whoever who comes to power, whoever who takes over, will also be taught a lesson, a bitter lesson.
No, but Mr. Chandima Veerakodi, you are saying that we should do this. We should hold them accountable. We should bring them before the law. We should bring them to book on what they have done. No debate there. But my question to you is, do you genuinely believe that once the president leaves the country to an entirely complete different jurisdiction where Sri Lankan courts cannot exercise their power, do you think that there is a possibility?
No, he is now a Sri Lankan citizen. So Sri Lankan courts have jurisdiction over Sri Lankan citizens.
Only if there are extradition treaties signed?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think that the present is still the president wants to go to that level and ruin what is left in him also, it is going to be so unfortunate about him also. I mean, if you think that he will go to some place where there is no agreement with Sri Lanka to hide, it obviously proves a point. Right? I mean, otherwise he should be able to, if he's a gentleman, he should come and defend himself.
I think since you so vociferously campaigned for him, Mr. Virakode, you'd know better as to if he's a gentleman or not.
No. It's like this. Now, we have to tell this also. In this country, I'm responsible, I must say, for bringing in former President Chandrika Bandaranaike, because she was the candidate put forward by our party at that time. Then, for bringing in Mahinda Rajapaksa as president, we are responsible because he was the party candidate. But this particular president was brought in by so-called Viatmaga and various people who said a politician should not be accommodated. We need person from outside. We need a person who has not been into politics.
Well, they said a lot of things. They said we need two brothers because that's the best combination. We need a family to run our country. That's
more than that. That was what was subsequently said. At the time he came, he said he will come without the family. That was what he openly said. He said he will not accommodate X, Y, and Z, naming people. But that was not done. So what this person was brought in by the people and forced us into us, forced him onto us. And I can tell you personally, the day he signed nominations, I personally didn't even participate. I got repeated calls, but I didn't want. But you know, in politics, when you belong to a certain camp, you have to
play by the rules.
Play by the rules. But now, it's another opportunity that the Sri Lankan politicians have got. Due to these situations that arose, we are able to look at things independently. We are able to come out of party, whatever fence, and say stand by the right thing. So I think this new political culture will be for the betterment of the future and for the future politicians who will take over. Now, after next election, there will be a lot of new faces. We might not be there even. For them, there will be a new culture. They will be able to stand by what is right without being pushed into by what the parties decide.
Just adding something to your question about being accountable, I think not only Gotabaya Rajapaksa, I think there should be a proper investigation. Maybe I have been repeatedly telling in Parliament that there should be a Parliamentary Select Committee, and I think COPE Chairman, even Mr. Charita Herath has written to the Speaker asking for a Parliamentary Select Committee, and especially the decision makers in the last 2 years. It could be politicians, it could be former finance ministers, it could be finance secretary, president's secretary, or whoever made these blunders should be accountable. We are in this position because of the decisions that these people made, and so many people have died. Right? I mean, almost 20 people have died in queues simply because of these decisions. So they have to be accountable, and there should be an investigation and bring them to book.
And if I may say, add to that, a lot of people say that the Parliament is responsible for this, most of it. But look at the decisions that created this situation. Who decided to cut taxes? Is it the Parliament? Parliament finally, when it came for ratification, Parliament decides. But who took the decision?
Mr. Virakuri, did you support that decision?
Decision was simply taken by the President. No one, did the people in this country ask for it? Did the parliamentarians ask for it? No one asked. Must find out who decided. Then when the sugar tax was brought down from 50 cents to 50 rupees to 25 cents, who decided? I personally know that not even the minister knew. Not even the minister knew. Then,
so Mr. Virakuri, you should have come up with these revelations at the time.
What?
You should have come up with these revelations.
I have come out. I have come here and raised. Before your media, I have raised at that time. Then the fertilizer issue. Who decided? Is it the Parliament? Who decided? On what basis?
The IMF matter?
Yeah, the IMF matter. Who delayed? We as parliamentarians, we have taken up all these issues. But now, there is nothing that the Parliament can do, parliamentarians can do when it is decided by a single person together with his friends. This is the main reason for this.
Mr. Virakuri, but ultimately the power, the absolute power for the President to make these arbitrary decisions was handed to him on a silver platter.
Absolutely by us. But then
go back. 20th Amendment.
Yeah, then go back. Now today, the public outcries this. People say, okay, do this. But at that to go back 5 years, the previous government was a joint government. So there was a lot of instability. President was from one side, the Prime Minister was on one side. We couldn't take any decisions. People were getting fed up of that governing style. So then they wanted a strong man. They wanted a person who can deliver. People, it is not us. 6.9 people believed in that. And then the man got elected. Then people said, okay, he can't deliver because he hasn't got the power. That was the, I mean, let's be frank.
Mr. Virakuri, just people didn't say that initially. It was an argument that was created and a narrative built, and the people supported it because the facts kind of fell in line at the time.
No, that was at that time. That is how the people felt, and the responsibility what the people expected from us was, as members of Parliament, give him the strength. He will deliver. Hadn't we done that, people would have said he was ready to deliver, but he didn't have the authority. So that is why, I mean, as people's representatives, we have to go by what the people expect, people feel.
So, but then, Mr. Virakuri, when the people felt enough is enough, somewhere around February, March, when the Aragale was building up, parliamentarians didn't see fit to listen to the people at the time.
In my case,
the President?
Well, in my case, it is about almost 2 years ago. From about 2 years ago, I started protesting. I started coming out with the truth. I have come here even 2 years ago. You may go back your programs. I have done the duty because I felt what the people wanted, and I saw this crash.
Unfortunately, your colleagues did not.
No, some of our colleagues also did, but the President didn't listen to us. He didn't even want to give us a hearing till these people who are in Galle phase came. We wanted Basil Rajapaksa out. We wanted Cabral out. We wanted Jayasundar out. How did they go? Just because we wanted? No. Thanks to Aragala people, thanks to them, at least such decisions were taken. So, a person who was not ready to listen to the democratically elected members has brought the country to this level. To my, I mean, this argument I am not bringing up only now. That has been my position for during the past 2 years continuously.
Mr. Rajakaruna, Mr. Virakuri just now touched on the role played by the Aragala people. Now, this all started with people stepping on the streets and protesting, and then it moved to Gotagogama, and it has become a massive culture almost. And once again, as I asked you earlier, if the Samagi Jana Balawege was to come into power, ultimately this same group of people will hold whoever is in power accountable, and I think patience is very thin these days in this current environment. How seriously is the Samagi Jana Balawege taking the requests, the proposals made by this group? You all had meetings with this group. Talk to us about those meetings and what came from those.
So, I mean, we have, grateful that people have come out. I have to say that when you say parliamentarians, we have been in the opposition and we have been protesting for the last 2.5 years, and we have been leading that, and I'm glad that people got together, even though it was not it was apolitical. It's a great thing that people have got to the streets and gone against this current regime. We have been talking to the representatives of the protests, the Aragalaya, and we have been actually we have set up a secretariat in the opposition leaders' office, where reform secretariat, and not only the Aragalaya representatives, but civil society, trade unions, all different groups have come together, and it has been very, very successful, I must say, because I have been attending to most of the meetings, and we have got all their proposals, thoughts, and we will be putting all those thoughts together, and we are very happy that it's very productive, I would say, because it's different organizations, different professional groups that have come and given their thoughts, and the opposition leader is given prominence to them, and there's a secretariat at the opposition leader's office, and we are working with them to bring these reforms to the country.
Mr. Rajakaruna and Mr. Virakuri, we were speaking about a change in the system, about bringing more accountability, about the people knowing where their taxpayers or where their money is going, what their money is being used for, so on and so forth. There are massive allegations of corruption. I need not mention where these allegations are directed at. There is a question from one of our viewers that is directed specifically for some reason to the two participants on the show physically, the two male politicians here. Have you made your asset declarations public? That is his question. And according to this viewer, that is the minimum thing that a politician can do to show their good faith in the people and in the requirement for a change in the system. What's your response? Shall we start off with Mr. Rajakaruna?
Yeah, I mean, from the day that I have been nominated, we had to declare as a declaration, and we have. I can remember the day that I signed my nominations. We gave it to the political party head office, and they sent it to the Election Commission. And ever since I was elected as a member of Parliament, every year I have been declaring asset declaration.
But Mr. Rajakaruna, this is not the asset declarations that is mandated by law to be handed over to Parliament. But people know about this, and the fact of the matter is that this is not accessible to the people. People can't really access this, and I believe Transparency International Sri Lanka created an initiative. I believe one of the reasons why there are so many people who believe in even parliamentarian Harsha De Silva, and there are people who have come out on social media and other platforms saying that even he is eligible to become the next Prime Minister in the interim government. One of the main factors is because he had made his asset declarations public, available to the public on that platform. So in that manner, so are you saying that the public can access?
I mean, if it cannot be accessible, I think we should make laws where that can be accessible.
No, as far as I can I understand, if someone makes a request to the speaker, speaker has to give a copy of it. Because under the right to
or the General Secretary of the Parliament.
Yeah, no, but there is. I mean, I
Right to Information Act. These are not considered any
Mr. Virakodi, we attempted to file a RTI application for the educational qualifications of parliamentarians, and it was rejected. That says a lot.
Yeah, I don't know under which provision of RTI Act.
So there is an appeals process, so on and so forth. But this application was just outright rejected. I'm not too sure as to how the appeals process went. But at the end of the day, we just don't have the details. We don't.
Because as far as we are concerned, from the time we took to politics, we have complied with the requirements. We have submitted, like he said, the day before we contest every election, we have to submit. And then every year, we have submitted. Of course, we may have delayed by about a couple of days or so. But we have
permissible delay.
Yeah, but we have submitted all our declarations.
Mr. Virakodi, did you know about this initiative by Transparency International? I believe they're an international organization that are lobbying for corrupt-free governments, internationally recognized organization, and they had this initiative.
And as far as I know, anyone can file action. There is under this. Long years ago, when I was practicing as was a practicing lawyer, I got a client who came. He wanted me to file action against a parliamentarian, but in that for not submitting assess declarations. But there was a section, as I vaguely remember, like if as the petitioner, if you file it with fraudulent intention, then you will be charged
under malicious prosecution.
Under malicious prosecution, like in any other law, it's not so direct, but here
it is.
It is. But so in that case, so there is a way. If you can't go under, if you are declined under RTI, why don't you go to the magistrate's court? Just check the act. Anyone can go to magistrate's court and file action.
I believe when we give it to the parliament, I really don't care whether it's in the parliament website even.
Yeah.
If the parliament
that is what should be done. Rather than asking
you are parliamentarians, why don't you make that?
No, we will make that proposal, because rather than us giving to this organization and that organization outside, it should be part of the law of the country, so that it's. I mean, why should we?
Fair point. Finally, because I believe the RTI Act was brought in the spirit of proactive disclosure, and that is what many of these organizations have been lobbying for. Not to wait until people asks you the question, saying, "Hey, can we have your education qualifications? Hey, can we have your asset declarations?" No, proactive disclosure, saying these are my educational qualifications.
And if you go to
these are my asset declarations.
Also, if you go to Parliament website, members' educational qualifications are also stated, as far as I know. If you just go online and type a person's name,
I believe that's only the tertiary educational qualifications.
Or is it? I don't know. We have given forms with all our qualifications which they have asked for, and what we understand is that it's there.
Right. So I believe that quite broadly answers the question posed by one of our viewers out there. Well, we've come to that point in the show when we will cross over to a short commercial break, and when we come back on the other side, it will be the final round of Face the Nation, where our panelists will be able to make their closing statements. Much was spoken of on Face the Nation today. Assurances were given. However, still we will have to wait and see, because there are a lot of uncertain factors, decisions that are to be made by individuals, of course, not present here today on our panel. But let's see what our panelists have to say on the closing statements of Face the Nation. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this short commercial break.
COVID-19 සඳහා ආරක්ෂිත පියවර. ජනයා වැඩි වශයෙන් සිටින ස්ථානයන්හි ගැවසීම මගහරින්න. රෝගය ආසාදිත පුද්ගලයන් හමුවීමට නොයන්න. මුහුණ, මුඛය, නාසය සහ ඇස් ඇල්ලීමෙන් වළකින්න. අනවශ්‍ය ගමන් බිමන් යෑමෙන් වළකින්න. මුඛාවරණය ඉදිරිපස ඇල්ලීමෙන් වළකින්න.
Gas, there is no electricity, and there is no milk powder.
Cabinet ministers and Prime Minister is not the solution.
But at the end of the day, even those who speak of good governance do not want to be held accountable.
A massive food crisis, and it will end in food riots.
Fighting for the right of the future generation and for the future kids.
Corrupted officials favor only these 2-3 people.
We will fight till the last, till my last drop of blood.
Sooner or later, they will have to step down.
We will not only suffer for another 3 years of this government.
The betterment of the people of our country.
Newsline, weekdays at 8:30 p.m. on TV1.
Welcome back. This is the final round of Face the Nation. We're in discussion with 3 members of Parliament who will soon be voting on behalf of us to appoint the next interim president of Sri Lanka, based on the assumption that the president of Sri Lanka will stay true to his word and resign from his position on the 13th of July. We're in the final round. It's the closing statements. Of course, our panelists are requested not to bring out any new arguments, but I believe we captured pretty much many areas in the discussion that was held before this. Starting off with parliamentarian Chandima Veerakodi, former minister. We don't have fuel to conduct our daily activities. The education of children has been seriously affected in the country, and amidst all of this, the economic crisis, we are now faced with a political crisis and also uncertainty on who the next interim president is. The acting president, of course, will only be in power for a very limited period of time, so let's just leave that aside for now. But on the appointment of the next interim president, Mr. Veerakodi, how far certain is it at this moment, right now?
Well, about this fuel issue, what, of course, it was due to, I must say, certain decisions that the previous ministers took, that we are faced with it in this magnitude. Initially, if I may explain, there was a decision to stop ordering furnace oil, which is used for electricity generation. Then that was stopped because of the payment issue between CPC and CEB. And as a result of that, electricity generation became an issue. No one could see that coming. That it shows the immaturity of the president and the cabinet. And then when the issue came, when really the issue arose, Cabinet took a certain decision to use diesel to generate electricity, power. Price of the price difference of diesel and furnace oil is about 30 to 35%. So that's a loss, and at the same time the diesel what was ordered for vehicles, when was given to electricity generation, there started a scarcity, and then whoever came out and said there will be a scarcity, people started topping up of vehicles, and that is the start of the problem, and now it's come to this level. Even as of now, we will have to, as a government, we will have to immediately think of a proper way of giving limited stocks of fuel which could be dispersed among everyone. How do we do it? Now what, I mean, when the president came, he talked about Oracle, but there are small apps that can resolve this issue. I mean, you can get all the vehicle details from the RMB.
I believe there was an app where a 3D depiction of the president popped up. This was there during the campaign for President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. So maybe contact the man who made that.
Who did, or can even a small young fellow can do that, because then there is a system that we started, SAP system, which was installed at the CPS still during my time. Even that is not being made use of. You have to do a small improvement to add a system. So like if you say one vehicle is allowed, vehicle bearing this number is allowed pump stock of diesel or petrol or whatever once a week. Each vehicle is given one opportunity once a week. So you go pump, then you can either run, you can either drink or whatever, you can sell, doesn't matter.
You can sell on the black market?
No, that's what has happened. That's what has happened now. But then only once. Same day if the same vehicle goes, then automatically the system will decline. It's a simple solution. Now what has happened is, lot of people, I know, most three-wheelers, they don't run, they sell. Look at the fishermen, most of them, they don't go to the sea, their kerosene quota is given to the buses, and the diesel quota is given to run generators. So without fishing, they earn their money. What has happened to the economy? Now the fish prices have gone up, not mainly due to the fact that the diesel prices have gone up. Hardly any fishermen go fishing. You check the number of liters that the CTB and private buses have got. Do you see? Check the amount of diesel released to petrol to buses. Do you see buses on the streets? This is all, I mean, mismanagement. And certain buses that really want to run, they get only 40 liters. With that they can't do their run. Mismanagement and not being able to understand the issues, not being organized, not being able to foresee, these are the issues. And I am telling you, if that can be rationing, I mean, you have to ration it. You have to understand, because we are not in a position at the moment to get constant, continuous supply. But whatever that we get should be dispersed in such way that
it is fair by everyone.
It's fair by everyone, and giving priority to the industries that can generate foreign exchange. If you tell the people, okay, look here, we are giving priority to these sectors that bring in foreign exchange, no one will oppose it. You have to tell the truth. This issue, what is this issue? This issue is not having foreign exchange. How do we resolve it? We have to give priority to tourism, we have to give priority to industries, we have to give priority to export agriculture, we have to give priority to foreign remittances. So, be truthful. And then another thing, now look at the CEB. Do you know the loss of CEB this year? That is 600 billion. What do? We have not been able to go for alternate energy. This is a country that is full of
and also based on the revelations made at COPE hearings, it's a lot of corruption within the CEB itself, and no proper administration, no proper oversight in Parliament. I think it was the chairman of the committee himself who said that they've tried so hard to get the CEB, and finally, after about a period of 5 years, now they finally have the CEB, and there is so much corruption.
The unions, how they work. I mean,
there's a collective agreement that guarantees a 25% increase every 3 years or so.
Whatever salary can be paid, so long as the institution is profit generating. But here what has happened? And the demands of the unions and the mafia there. If we are not ready to give solutions to these, this country can't go forward. And we have to be truthful. We have to place it now it's exposed. We must tell the people, look here, this is our issue. How do you resolve the income that you get out of tax collection in the country is only 900 billion. All the taxpayers put together give 900 billion to the country. Loss alone of CEB is 600 billion. So these are issues that we have to explain to the public and take steps to. I don't think there will be any party that will oppose. Now that the people out there in Aragalya understand these things, they are seriously as civil society concerned about it, and since they are also going to be part of governance, I think we should be able to address these issues and take the country on the correct track. And of course, we'll have a difficult time. I mean, if whoever says, okay, now that the president has stepped down, within a period of a week or two, everything will be hunky-dory, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be that under anyone. We will have to make sacrifices, all of us. And then we'll have to see to it that the country is on the correct path, and the program has to be put to the people. People should be able to ask, hey, look here, what's happening? Like you said, when this president came, people were expecting prosperity and digitalization. What has happened? But the leaders will have to be able to listen to the people.
And the leaders will have to be truthful, like you said, Mr. Veerakkudi.
Being truthful. I mean, if you had you told the truth to the people, if you tell the truth to the people, look here, this is our issue.
I believe on that front, the Samagi Janabalavegi and Dr. Harsha De Silva said the truth 2 years ago when he said we need to go to the IMF.
He said it, even we said it, we came out on TV and said it, there is no option. I categorically, even at the group meeting at that time, said, of course, if you have a country, a friendly country to give, do that. We don't have such. Now we have to, till such time the IMF program is finalized, we have to get bridging finance. Where have we got? Only from Indian, only other than the Indian credit line. We have of course got a few dollars
humanitarian
aid. But not, other than that, we haven't got anything considerable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandimavira Kodi. I now move my attention to Mr. Harshana Rajakaruna. Well, for your closing statement, if I may pose this question from one of our viewers. He says that, according to his belief, there wasn't enough resistance from the opposition in Parliament against these decisions that were taken, and that is the reason why there had to be a separate force of the people mobilizing to throw out the administration. And he questions you, Mr. Rajakaruna, on the efficiency of an administration under the SJB, or a leader appointed by the SJB. Will it bring a solution?
First of all, I should tell that we have been in giving our thoughts. We have had protests. We have done it inside the parliament. We have done it outside the parliament. We have been, trying to rectify the mistakes that these government, what they have been doing. We have been giving our best to inform the public. Unfortunately, we have to realize that yes, we have only 50 parliamentarians, but it's out. They had 2/3. They have the executive power. They have the provincial councils, the local councils, 2/3 in the parliament. So we had to fight against that, the 50 of us. However, we did as much as possible. It was not only, it wasn't the Aragalia 2 years ago, it was the SJB that came to the streets. And it was us who had protests in every electorate, every town. So at the end, it was great news that the public also finally realized, and everybody got together. So that was the victory. However, I can't agree with that person that we didn't do our part. We did our part, and we did it as much as possible with the limited number of MPs we had. And not only that, we have been very consistent. We have been telling what to do. We have been telling the government what to do and what not to do. We have been very consistent. We have not been vague. So unfortunately, the government didn't listen, and that's the main reason that we have come to this unfortunate situation. Whether SJB is ready, yes, we are. I have been telling even before that we have had discussion with all political parties. I told you that we have a secretariat, reform secretariat in the opposition leader's office for not only the parliamentarians or other political parties, all the other civil societies, professional groups, the trade unions, to bring their thoughts and proposals. So we have got all that together. Then the opposition leaders has invited all political parties represented in the parliament, and like Mr. Chandimavira Kodi said, that is going on very strongly, where there are two committees. Dr. Harsha De Silva is leading the economic committee. Dr. Raj Senaratne is heading the political committee. So they have put their proposals together. So we have done everything, but we were very straightforward. We didn't want to work with Gotabaya Rajapaksa because we knew that he will not allow us to do anything we want. And we on the 9th of May, we clearly told him that we will take the government, but as long as you give a clear indication when you're leaving. So Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, without any condition, grabbed the premiership, and that was the reason that this continued or was stagnant for another 2 months. So now Gotabaya Rajapaksa has clearly said that he is going to resign, and we are ready. Not only we are ready, it's a challenge. It's not a piece of cake. So we will lead this all-party government. Sajith Premdas, the opposition leader, has been nominated. So we hope that there won't be any political deals and games being played in the next week. We hope that everybody will support Mr. Sajith Premdas, and all political parties will get together so that we can overcome for the sake of the country. And I have to tell all these parliamentarians that people are watching you. People are watching you. You can't play games. You can't have deals. So please be honest, and let's all get together and work towards a bright future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harshan Rajakaruna. Finally, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya from the Jatika Janabalawege. Dr. Harini, even today, I think we've discussed this quite a number of times on your many appearances here on our network regarding the JVP and allegations that have been leveled by the people saying that there was violence in the past, the JVP has a violent past. How do you expect the people to trust you now? And I believe you've given almost the same answer over and over again. However, even today, we continue to receive questions from the general public as to why they should give power to the JVP, or they should trust in the JVP on building a peaceful, prosperous country when the party has such a violent past. Of course, I refer to the JVP loosely between the Jatika Janabalawege and the JVP. So maybe you can take this closing remarks as an opportunity to address this, Dr. Harini. I didn't want to reserve a specific time during the journalist round, but of course, just to let you know.
So I think, as you have mentioned, we've dealt with this over and over again. Now, the fact is, I would ask people to look at our record, or the JVP's record, for the last so many years, right? And to base their, not to go back to 88, 89 and make an assessment, but look at how we have functioned, how the JVP has functioned as a political party in the last, since then, right? So, and also, to be honest, I mean, people have selected the other mainstream parties over and over again for 74 years. Where has it got us, right? Where has it got us? When you accuse the JVP of violence, I think in many ways that's a very selective reading of history, and we can discuss this. I'm quite happy to talk about this at length in any of the programs if you give me the opportunity, but I'm not sure I have the time today to do that. But it's a very selective reading of history. And I think it's based on a lot of bias, it's based on a lot of prejudice. And that's, and just reflect on the fact where 74 years of the public choices, where it has left us today. Because just as much as we would blame the Rajapaksas and their brand of politics for bringing us to this low state, I don't think it's only about the Rajapaksas. I think we have to deal with much more than the Rajapaksas and acknowledge the fact that for 74 years we've not been unable to really put in place the systems that the country needed to put in place in order to be where we should be, and in order to give the people of our country the lives that they deserve, right? So when people focus solely on something that happened 20, 30 years ago, and are still trying to base their judgment today based on something that happened 30, 40 years ago, I'm not sure that's very fair, and that it even takes into account the current reality. So that's one thing. I mean, forgetting all of that, I think the country is moving into a really critical stage. The next week is going to be hugely critical for us. The next few days are going to be hugely critical. And I think we've got to get our priorities right. We have to ensure that the president actually resigns. We have to ensure that the prime minister resigns. That's the demand that the people have been making. And I think this idea that has come out suddenly from the UNP, that it would be unconstitutional for the prime minister to resign, is absurd. I mean, then how did Mahinda Rajapaksa resign? That's not possible. So so we have to really focus on setting the country right, or setting the country on the right track. And the first thing that needs to happen is that these two have to resign, and then following the constitution, we have to be able to elect a president and set in place an interim administration. And once again, I want to reiterate the fact that from the conversation that we've had today as well, we can see the problems that we have been facing in the 9th Parliament with the composition of the 9th Parliament and the limitations that this composition has brought about on our ability to function effectively and to bring about the kinds of reforms that are necessary to take the country forward. So any interim administration has to acknowledge the limitations of the 9th Parliament and to have some kind of a timeline for calling for fresh elections, so that a new administration with a fresh mandate from the people can actually move forward to address the critical issues that this country is facing. In the meantime, even an interim administration, we think, can do some basic things to relieve some of the suffering of the people. And importantly, also put in place certain changes to the political culture, this culture of privilege, this culture of nepotism, the culture of wastage and corruption. And that has to be set by an example from the leadership itself. That has to come from the leadership, that has to come from the people's representatives. They have to set that example before they can expect any change from anyone else. And I think in a way it's become a kind of a very popular stance to take these days, to blame the trade unions, blame the public sector, blame everybody else. But at the bottom of all of the fundamental problem here is our political culture, which has kind of established this regime of wastage, inefficiency, corruption, and privilege, which has sort of influenced all the different areas of public life and all the arms of government. So all of that has to change. But importantly, I think let's take it, in little bits, because I think there's so much that needs to be done, and if you look at everything that needs to be done, it might seem overwhelming. So let's first focus on what needs to be done, and in this precise moment. And in this precise moment, I think we still have to be very alert to the fact that the two people most responsible for the current situation in the past and in the moment have not resigned as yet. And I think we have to make sure that they resign. Then within a very short period, set in place this interim administration with this, lay out clearly what the tasks of that interim administration are and what the duration of that interim administration will be, and move into and provide people an opportunity to really exercise their franchise and elect a government that can resolve the very critical issues that we are facing. I think those are the things that we need to focus on. So once again, for all of you who continuously question the JVP and its violence, I would also request that you also move beyond what happened 30, 40 years ago and look at the record since then, and to look at also the role that the JVP has played in highlighting many of the issues, in bringing out to the public the many issues that we are currently dealing with and that we are currently experiencing, which were and often that narrative of violence and the narrative of and that burden of history has often meant that the important work that the JVP did in exposing so much of what needs to be fixed in our country was not taken seriously enough, and we are in this mess today because we haven't dealt with those issues in the past, and if we don't deal with it now, it will be too late for this country. So let's focus on the moment, let's focus on the present, and let's focus on what needs to happen now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. Also, thank you very much to our two other guests who were present here today physically, Mr. Chandima Virakodi and Mr. Harshan Rajkarna. Thank you very much for joining us and, well, keeping the people informed during these trying times when there is so much ambiguity around us. And of course, we hope and pray that as elected representatives of the people, as the leaders of Sri Lanka, you will do right by the nation and at least help us come out of this crisis in one piece as a country. But at the end of the day, a crisis is always an opportunity for human beings to rise beyond themselves. Take care and God bless.
ඇත්ත කෙටියෙන් දත්ත වැඩියෙන් සයිබර් අවකාශයේ කළඹන වුවත් සලකුණ News First YouTube channel අදම subscribe කරන්න. News First ජනතාව සමග